Hi guys, are you ready for the Royal Rumble? The knockdown, drag out fight to see who's going to make it into the garden this year? Is it going to be the lowly pepper? Is it going to be the lowly tomato? Or is it going to be the up and coming pepper? Who's going to win a spot? Who's going to win a coveted spot in the garden? Actually, both of them. I'm going to be the winner. Tomatoes and peppers are by far the most popular vegetables to grow. You could probably find them in almost every garden around the world. I know people who just have salsa gardens. They have tomatoes, peppers, cilantro, and a couple other things. So I'm going to show you how to plant these up to get them off to a really great start, have lots of fruit, have really good success this year. And stay tuned to the end. I'm also going to show you how to plant up okra and eggplant. I tried okra last year. It worked out well. Trying eggplant. I've got a few unusual types this year, so stay tuned and I'll show you those. I'd like to welcome you to my backyard Kentucky homestead. If you're new here, my name is Kim, and I want to thank you all for joining me. So let's get started. All right, so let me show you where I'm going to be putting my tomatoes and peppers this year. I'm going to have 2 beds of tomatoes. Here's one of them. And then over here, I'm going to have a bed of peppers. And just beyond it, also another bed of tomatoes. On the far side of the garden, which I'll show you here after we're done, I've actually already got peppers planted last night, the hot peppers. So what we have here are a variety of tomatoes. I have paste tomatoes. I have slicing tomatoes, both like medium size and very large size beefsteak. And I also have a couple of cherry tomatoes. I will be putting determinate tomatoes in a 3rd bed back there that's not set yet. And then probably also in some grow bags. I'm also going to put them 5 across. It is a little closer than they technically should be. I will have to keep them pruned a little bit more than normal, but it worked perfectly fine last year. I will be setting up trellising probably next week, and what I use are T-posts on each corner of the bed, and I have a pole that'll go across on both sides with crossbars for support, and that allows me to use string trellising up to 8 feet tall. So I will share that structure with you once it gets set up. So to start, what we're going to do, this is raised bed soil that has been added this year. It's fresh, light, very fluffy compost. So it'll be a really good structure for the tomatoes to grow in. I'm going to be adding a Spoma Organic Hollytone, which is a 434 NPK. You're looking for pretty much anything that's a balanced nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. We're going to be adding more phosphorus though, because for root and fruit development, which is the primary goal with peppers and tomatoes, we need more phosphorus. So this has a 2-17-0 NPK, so nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. The potassium is to help the overall metabolic balance of the plant, the overall health, its ability to resist disease and also pests, just to keep it healthy and everything rolling the way it should. Nitrogen is for the green development. Now, if you have too much nitrogen with your tomatoes or peppers, you're going to have big, beautiful green plants. You're going to have a lot of foliage. You're just not going to have a lot of fruit. So we really want to focus on the phosphorus, that middle number of the NPK. So this is going to be pretty easy. Just going to go ahead and dig a little hole. And where I am squishing these in here pretty good, I'm going to move it all the way to the edge. Now, some people have wondered about heat transfer with the metal beds. I had plants this close last year. I had absolutely no issues, and we regularly get up into the high 90s with high humidity. So it was not an issue with these vegeta beds. Okay. So into each plant hole, I'm going to put a handful of organic fertilizer. Now, you don't have to worry so much with burning the plant like you do with the higher synthetic fertilizers. Those have a much higher percentage of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. This is lower, so it's almost impossible. It's really hard to burn your plants with this, so you don't have to worry quite as much about that. So I'm going to put the fertilizer, the balanced fertilizer, the Hollytone in there, and then I'm going to take the bone meal, put that in the hole as well. And then to take the plants out of the containers, you want to turn them over, and then I'm going to squeeze back and forth until it comes loose. You don't want to pull on this because you'll break the roots and the plant will die. And I just like to fluff up that bottom a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and put some of that bone meal right on there, mix it up, put it in there, and then we're gonna cover it. It's that easy. Okay. And then I'm gonna put my tag there so I know which one it is. This is the black cherry tomato. It was the most prolific and amazing tomato last year. The day before we were going to have a really hard frost, I probably picked about 5 pounds of tomatoes that ripened over the next several weeks after that. It was an amazing plant. So I would highly recommend it. So I forgot to mention 2 things. Tomatoes really will actually grow roots along the stem. So we want to plant these lower than soil level. Almost every other plant you will do, even peppers, which are also in the nightshade family, need to be planted at soil level. Tomatoes we're actually going to plant further down, but we don't want these leaves touching the dirt because that is how soil-borne diseases can get to the plant. What I did was yesterday is snapped these lower leaves off, and we're going to plant it a little bit deeper. Now the black cherry was a really small tomato, so I couldn't really do it any lower. But it also will help if you have leggy tomatoes. So plants like this Moscovich, which are much, much taller, we can plant this further down so that it'll have roots all along here. It'll also make it a much sturdier, stockier plant. It's a lot healthier. If you do end up with leaves that are very close to the dirt, you want to go ahead and pinch those off or use a pair of trimmers and just take that off. Because if the leaves are touching the dirt, it allows any bacteria to get onto the plant. That's where tomatoes will get a lot of their disease issues, is from the soil. So what I'm going to do later this week is get my drip irrigation running. We will not be watering these overhead. I'm going to go ahead and water them in now. But from now on, we'll be using the drip irrigation, so the water is just at the soil level. All right, so the very last thing I'm going to do with this bed is I'm going to plant some basil. There's discussion about companion planting. The basil will not make the tomatoes taste better, but it does have the effect of confusing bugs, and particularly the tomato hornworm. So for the tomatoes last year that I had planted with basil inside the bed, like I'm going to be doing here, I had absolutely no hornworms. On some that I had in grow bags and other areas that were not near basil, I got a couple of hornworms. This bed, we're just going to water it in, and then we'll be ready to go. So we're going to go ahead and do almost the same thing with the peppers, except we are going to plant them at surface level. We're not going to bury them deeper. Also, the tomatoes are too young to have flowers on them, but the peppers are not. This one already has some flowers on it. You want to go ahead and pick those off. Just pop those off right now. And go ahead and any more that develop in the next week or two, we want to go ahead and just pinch those off as well. We want the pepper to have as much root development as it can early in its life. That way it'll be a much stronger plant throughout the season. I'm just going to use my fingernail and just pop it off. Real easy. And keep an eye out because these bud out very fast. So just take any buds off out for the first week or two after you plant them. This is a purple beauty bell pepper. And do again the organic polytone. A little bit of bone meal. Pop that plant in there and just to surface level. We're not going to plant that deeper. Now, when I was growing these, I did pinch these. So this one has 2 liters on it now. It does set the plant back a little bit, but not that much. So this one it'll have more stems on it because I pinched it. And all that does is you pinch the leader off, which would have been right here in the center. And then it just creates 2 new leaders. It just increases the amount of branching that the plant has and therefore the availability of space for fruit. And I am doing, each pepper needs about 1 foot of spacing. My bed's 6.5 by 3.5 feet. So I'm doing 6 each in 3 rows. And these are all the sweet peppers. There's another twofer. So I'm gonna leave those together. And I'm gonna put a hot Jedi jalapeno over here, just to have another one in there. But I'm gonna leave those together. They do tend to support each other, so just leave those as they are. All right, so there we have it. So next, let me show you where I'm gonna put the okra. I really do not have a spot for it. So I'm going to kind of tuck it in where it is a very tall plant. It gets up to 6, 7 feet tall. I'm going to tuck it into some areas that it will grow behind, like in this pepper bed, for example. I'm going to tuck one or a couple in here, in this area, right here. And along the back of the bed, because it won't block the sun from the peppers, but it's really slim at the bottom. So it'll provide a really good space for it. So I'm switching to another type of bone meal because that other bag ran out. So what I have for okra is Hill Country red okra, Clemson spineless okra, and Long Pod Perkins okra. So I'm going to do the same thing I did with the tomatoes and the peppers. Dig a little hole right here on the edge. A little bone meal. Little fertilizer. And then we're just going to plant it to surface level. So it's the next day. I ran out of time yesterday, and when I was looking around the garden, I realized my raised beds are actually pretty full right now. I didn't have space for the eggplant. So what I'm going to do today is plant it in a couple of grow bags, show you how to do that. I'll also show you, we've had a lot of rain over the last 12 hours or so. So I'm going to show you what the peppers and the tomatoes are looking like this morning. So let's get started on day 2. So I'm going to use a premium organic potting soil in my grow bags. So historically, we've not been huge eggplant fans, but we did find eggplant in the air fryer is actually pretty good. So we're going to try 6 different types this year. I've not had any of these before. The first one is Rosa Bianca, Turkish orange eggplant, which is an orange eggplant. Casper eggplant, which is a white one. And I will put images on the screen. Azwad eggplant. Long purple eggplant. And Lestrade de Grandia. Lestrade something. I'll put a picture on the screen with the proper name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plant 2 of these per grow bag. This is a 5-gallon grow bag. And they need about a foot in between. So what I'm going to do is going to put one on one side, one on the other side. It's a little close, but it'll be okay. Probably should be okay. The plants generally will get about 20 to 30 inches tall, so about somewhere between 2 and almost 2.5 feet. So that should be plenty of space for them. So we'll do 3 grow bags with 2 plants each. And it's going to be very similar to how we planted the peppers and the tomatoes, in that we are going to use the Hollytone organic fertilizer. Sprinkle some in here, some over there. And then we're going to add in a little bone meal, because again, we want to have really good fruit and root development. Okay. And we're going to do 1 of each type. I do have 3 in here, so what I'm going to try to do is just separate one out, put the other 2 back for the moment. Get this tucked in, and we're going to put this on at surface level, so we do not want to bury it. And then we're going to do the same thing with the swad. Let's try to break it apart very carefully. So just want to be careful with those. So there we have the 2, and I needed to get labels and put those in here. And then once we get it in the yard, or into the garden area, I'm gonna go ahead and water it in. But since I don't want to have to carry wet dirt, I'm gonna wait to water that in. And once we get all of these planted, I'm also gonna show you the tomatoes and peppers that we planted yesterday. So it is just as easy as that. I'm going to keep these next to the ones so I can make labels for them. We'll get those moved out to the garden and go from there. Okay, just give them just a little bit of water because we are expecting more rain this afternoon. So let me show you some of the other stuff going on in the yard right now. Up here, we have sugar snap peas. I actually was able to get some of those off of there yesterday. So they're already flowering and producing fruit. Over here, we have the potatoes that we planted up in April. If you are interested in growing potatoes in a grow bag, check out the video. I'll link it up above from when I planted these. As I said in that video, what I'm trying this year is to do several different ways, which I want to have a video here talking about that and fertilizing potatoes, as well as the Ruth Stout method. So this is my April 20th planting these 3 bags right here. Okay. So this is the first bed of tomatoes, and we have basil. We have basil in the center. Basil, I found last year, was very, very helpful in keeping tomato hormones away. So I will be planting that with all of my tomatoes going forward. Here's the first bed of peppers. These are the sweet peppers, which we planted yesterday. They're doing well. So there's also 5 okra along the very back. Okra gets very tall, and the beds here are, this side is facing southwest, this side is facing northeast. The sun's going to come from this direction. So having the tall okra behind the peppers is not going to be a problem for them in this bed. And the tomatoes that are behind that bed are going to be so tall anyway. I'm going to have an 8-foot trellis system set up, so they're going to be way taller and have plenty of sunlight. The okra won't be a problem for that. And this is our hot pepper bed. These are put in 2 days ago. And I have some onions that I had to transplant at the very end of the bed. They weren't getting enough light over by the garlic, so I moved those over. And they're doing pretty good for being transplanted. There's a little browning, but that's not to be unexpected with that. So if you're interested in starting tomatoes, peppers, okra, or eggplant, it's a little late for this season. Right now it's May 3rd. Uh, but for next season, check out my video that I did on planting tomatoes, choosing the right tomatoes for your garden and your purposes, and also planting peppers. Uh, very, very simple, very easy. It just takes a little time. You probably will need a grow light. So check out my DIY grow light station video too if you're interested in that. And I want to thank you for joining me. I hope this gave you some really good information. If you did find it helpful, go ahead and hit the like button. And if you are new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you join me on my journey into gardening. This is my second year and I'm absolutely loving it. Next year, I'm probably going to pare down how much I'm doing. Like I said, my garden is already full and it is just the beginning of May. I do have a couple of beds that'll turn over later this month and into June. But right now, there's no space for summer squash. I'm going to have to figure that out here in the next week because I really, really want some summer squash. So anyway, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you next time. I hope you have a wonderful day.